I remember it was College Hunks Hauling Junk. Did you add the
We
and
add the
moving?
yeah, we added the and moving, almost like batteries plus bulbs. It's just the longest worded mouthful of a company name that you could probably ask any bit. Any branding naming guru would probably say it's too much, but it's worked. So
It's worked, and the colors are iconic too,
yeah,
right? Like you guys have kept that same color theme.
that's right.
Did you ever think about changing it along the way?
No, we
Because you've been in business 20 years
20
now.
years. Yeah, we talked about the name at one point. We joked, we did a April Fool's joke and said we were going to rebrand it Dad Bod's Moving just because we've aged out of
You're no
college
longer
hunks.
College Hunks,
Exactly.
yeah. Man, that's awesome. 2005. Well, hey, congrats. 20 years in business, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Did you
Yeah.
guys have a big
We did.
throwdown?
We had a big party. We had Ludacris come perform a private concert
Oh
at
my
the
God.
convention center for all of our franchisees, and Ric Flair made an appearance.
Amazing.
So it was fun. Yeah.
I'm here with Nick Friedman, owner, partner, right, of College Hunks, Holland Junk, and Moving, and the author of Effortless Entrepreneur. We were talking before we went live. You guys, you and your partner Omar wrote this book. You said 15 years ago.
Yeah, we were about 5 years into launching our business, and we were at a conference, and one of the speakers was like, anybody who's ever written a book always says they wish they wrote it 10 years ago, so start writing. So we went to the bar, and we like looked at each other, and we're like, oh, I guess we got to write a book.
Where did you guys get so deep into this business and entrepreneurship world? I mean, I've seen you, you guys were on Shark Tank, right? Episode 1, which I definitely want to talk to you about because you walked in there as well, like a 20-year-old?
23, 24-year-old, yeah.
That's insane, man. But you guys seem very dialed in on this entrepreneurship mindset business thing, and all the content that I've seen you on, you talk about that mindset and growth, and that's why I'm excited to talk to you today. But where did that all come from? So you guys knew each other in high school. Talk to me about your origin story, though, man.
Yeah, so grew up in Washington, D.C. Omar and I went to high school together. We became best friends. We actually met in detention, of all places. And summer before our senior year of college, we were home for summer vacation. His mom had a beat up cargo van. She's like, why don't you guys go borrow the van? And then she looked us up and down. She goes, you guys could be college hunks who haul junk. We just laughed about it at first and then just made computer printout flyers, recognized that people thought the name was catchy. They had a need for the service. And I actually never knew what the word entrepreneur meant until we started doing work for ourselves. And people were like, oh, you guys are entrepreneurs. And I was like, okay, I guess that's what that word means. And I think most college students would stop at graduation and go do something in the real world. But we decided to see how far we could take it. And we decided to make it a year-round venture and eventually franchise it to the point where we have 200 locations around the country now. So that's kind of how it got going. But we were doing all the work ourselves in those early days.
When you look back over those 20 years and that number, right, 200 franchises throughout the country, is that crazy for you, or did you always know, hey, we're going to make this thing happen?
I think we were always ambitious and had a lofty vision of being a national brand name, creating an iconic brand. We could picture our trucks in every city, even when we only had one orange and green truck. So for sure, the vision was always out there. I think to have seen it kind of manifest the way it has, and the fact that 20 years, 2 decades has gone by, I call it a 20-year overnight success, because sometimes it feels like I look up and like, holy cow, I can't believe how big this has become. But at the same time, I can, because it's like we always aspired for that outcome.
That's amazing, man. And so you probably started off initially doing everything yourself, right? You were the one carrying the boxes and hauling the junk and driving the car. And how soon did you sort of think about scaling this thing? There's a huge difference between one truck and obviously 200 locations.
Yeah, absolutely. I always tell the story. We went and we bought a 1-800 number to make ourselves look like a national brand, even though we had the one truck. We put it on the back of the truck and it was still routed to our cell phone. So people would call to complain about erratic driving, and I'd be in the driver's seat and like, oh yeah, we'll fire those guys. We'll tell them to be safer on the road. Probably fired ourselves 3 or 4 times. And we burnt out a little bit because there was only so much that the two of us could do in a 24-hour time span. One of our mentors, he recommended to us a book called The E-Myth Revisited by a guy named Michael Gerber, who's actually the guy who we got to write the foreword for our book when we published ours. We tracked him down and just told him how influential he had been to us in our early journey. And it was like another light bulb moment for us. It was like the book was written about us because it was talking about people don't fail, systems fail, learn to work on the business, not in the business, have a long-term vision, and then to create the systems and the process. And then in that book, he also talks about franchising. So that was kind of like the first seed that got planted in our head. If we're ever going to have another truck, let alone another location, we have to document how we're doing everything ourselves, then hire people, And then we went the franchise path to be able to expand it, which was kind of what led us to move down to Tampa to begin franchising.
That franchise path, was that a long road for you and your partner to kind of question if that was the right call?
I'll I'll say we were very naive. It was franchising was a buzzword when we first heard it, and all I could picture was like McDonald's, and I would
Right.
pictured dollar signs because I heard the word royalty, and to me it triggered this notion of passive income. And I'll say it was nothing passive about it. It was a very steep learning curve, kind of treacherous walk to become a successful franchisor. So I think we got into it a little prematurely for the wrong reasons, but we got involved with great mentors. We joined the International Franchise Association, so we were able to surround ourselves with other franchise brands in the service sector, not what you might traditionally think of franchising like food or retail. And yeah, I mean, it was. I actually a lot of times people reach out to me be like, "Oh, should I franchise my company?" And I spend usually the first 5 to 10 minutes kind of trying to unpack whether they could do it without franchising because it's an added layer of complexity. We were no longer in the moving or junk removal business. We were in the franchise business. So now we were selling franchises, training franchises, supporting them. And until you have 50 or even 100 franchisees, the royalty stream you're collecting isn't really sufficient to cover your overhead. So you're so reliant on upfront franchise fees where we made some shorthanded decisions, selling the franchise to the wrong people, selling too much territory that we had to ultimately try to pull back. So
Mm.
it's a long march to be a successful franchisor. I think we've reached the other side, and now we're sort of prepping for how do we keep it building and growing and maintain and become beyond iconic as a brand.
And so how many states are you guys in? You said across the country, right?
We're in 41 states.
Damn.
Yeah.
So is like, I don't know, the short term or initial goal right now to be in all 50?
Yeah, being all 50, I would say we're probably a little less than 2/3 sold out of the country in terms of viable metro markets. So we want to, completely sell out of territory in the U.S. and then Canada, and then go deeper as well. Be able to service more clients, not just homeowners, but businesses, long distance move. Look at storage as an extension for our brand. So I think just kind of going deeper and wider is sort of our game plan.
And then for the actual service, right? Like I remember I was trying to throw out a TV and the city wouldn't take it. And I think, the city has like a special pickup they'll do, but you have to pay for it.
Mhm.
You guys do that as well, right? But you might not come and pick up one item. How do you guys work on that
So
service side?
it's essentially moving, which is your traditional mover, but we also do junk removal, which is really how we started. And think of it as a premium priority service for getting rid of one item or multiple items, from your garage, if you're not in Florida, basement or attic. And so a lot of times people, when they come face to face with stuff that they no longer need, bulky furniture, debris, appliances that's taking up space, they just want it gone, and they don't want to have to lift it themselves to drag it to the curb. They don't want to have to wait 2 weeks for the city to come get it. They just want to clear out the space today. So that's kind of, a lot of times people will call us and have our team come out and do the work same day or next day so they can, keep whatever home project they were doing or prepare themselves for their move. So, it started out with just simply junk removal. That sort of expanded into, people that are downsizing or decluttering. There's, obviously some of the extreme examples like hoarding or renovation, remodeling, clean out and debris cleanup. And then we added moving a couple of years later. So it's kind of anything that people need trucks and labor to do, we can do. A lot of people actually will sometimes have us come pick up donations to deliver them to the Goodwill or Salvation Army Habitat because, and pay for that service because the donation centers are backed up multiple weeks or they're so selective as to what they can take, or they can only take stuff from the curb and they won't go into the home to remove it. So it's kind of a full service solution.
That's awesome. So I was at Face the Chamber. This was maybe like early in the summer, a few months ago. I don't really remember, but the mayor was talking and she brought up a really cool story. She's like, during the hurricane, between the two hurricanes, the city only had like a week or whatever to clean up the existing debris. And she said, I got on the phone with Nick and Omar and they came and helped us out. And we're so thankful for them. And he's like, yeah, Nick came and brought the trucks and we hauled off, some debris in anticipation of the storm coming. So what was that phone call like from the mayor?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we were all sort of shell shocked after Helene. My house flooded, my mother-in-law's house flooded. a beach house flooded. So, we were all as a community just sort of like standing up, and there was literally debris on every single curb of people's junk that got wet. And the mayor, I guess, realized she was shorthanded, saw one of our trucks when she was driving down the road, and decided to text and call me and Omar and say, "Hey, we're shorthanded trucks. I saw one of your trucks. We need help." And so, because this is when they announced that Milton was coming, so now you
Right.
got a Category 5 or Category 6 a week away. And the stuff on the curb could turn into projectiles if it gets spun up by the wind. And so we started going house to house, which we were already doing directly, but we started doing it for the city, and kind of, all hands on deck in the organization. And we had some really, I would say, harrowing stories. We had a team member who lost everything himself. He lost his entire home, but he still came to work every single day to go get on the trucks and to go start cleaning up the neighborhood. So I think it was a really, shining example, small shining example of, small business resilience in a community, teamwork with, the local officials to help put a city back on its feet. And I think for me as a founder, and also, somebody who lives in Tampa, it was a prideful moment to be able to be a part of that recovery effort, and play a small role in, securing the stuff off of people's curbs so it didn't become a safety hazard.
Super important role too, because I remember it was a scramble. I mean,
Yeah.
because everyone's stuff, I mean, you had couches, and people were even starting to do that demolition and like renovation process too. So you had like 2x4s and drywall right in the
Yeah.
driveways.
And our trucks, like, we don't have those big grappling hooks like, the FEMA machines. Like, our guys were literally like pulling up, getting out, and hand loading the trucks of the debris. So
Says a lot about your employee too, especially the one that, he's
lost
like
everything.
he lost everything, and here he is helping other people too.
Yeah, we made a short form documentary that's available on YouTube. It's called Hunks versus the Hurricanes. So it's less than 10 minutes long, but it's worth checking out. We interviewed Mayor Castor, Dennis Phillips, the meteorologist, kind of was a local celebrity, as well as, of course, the team member who I just mentioned that lost everything. And we aired it at the Tampa Theater, and now it's available on YouTube. So it kind of tells the story of our hurricane cleanup. Yeah, I guess here's the
Hunks versus the Hurricanes.
For over 100 years, we watch storms pass by. But nature has a way of reminding us that no streak lasts forever. The warnings came, the winds picked up. This time, Tampa was in the crosshairs.
Pause it. Yeah, people, check that out. I can't wait to watch this thing. This is so well done. And is this now going to be a part of your regular arsenal when the next hurricane comes? I mean, now that you have the experience?
I would say we've always sort of partnered up with like the disaster restoration type companies, the Surf Pros or the Paul Davis restorations, where we can be an extra set of labor and trucks. But there's no reason why. And a lot of people have always just simply thought of us as, your homeowner solution,
Right.
or your, business transportation solution. But there's no reason with trucks and labor that we can't be available, not just for hurricane recovery, and debris removal or content movements, but also hurricane preparedness. So we're actually in some talks with some different groups about maybe some pre-hurricane type work that we could do, whether it's delivering sandbags or, helping folks secure their home in preparation for, a pending storm.
That's amazing, man, because we need it. I think if the last couple storms did anything, it was make everyone aware of the serious threat. And we've been lucky, man, for so long. Like, we really haven't had a storm like that. I mean, the water rose more for sure in my lifetime. I've lived here my whole life, and my dad even said it was more in his lifetime, and he's 70 something years old, so it was a reality check for our community.
Yeah, I'm very hopeful that it's, a once or twice in 100-year occurrence, right? Because not only did we have, unprecedented flood levels and water levels with Helene, you had one right a week later with Milton. Thankfully, you actually missed the direct hit from Tampa,
Right.
because they were predicting that it might smack right into Tampa, which would have been a lot worse. But But yeah, it was a wake up call. Hopefully we don't, completely let our guard down again or forget about it. But there's also only so much you can do.
So much you can do, man. You just got to be ready for it. So thanks to you guys for helping out, man. That's super cool.
We played a small role, but we were grateful to be able to.
So I want to go back to the beginning. Pull back up that Shark Tank clip. So this was you, and you said I think this was 2009.
Yes.
So you're 4 years, 5 years in business. How does this whole thing get set up? Do they call you? Do you put in an application?
We saw an ad in Entrepreneur Magazine that said looking for business owners to pitch a business idea for a pilot TV show. That's kind of all we saw. And so at the time, we were starting to franchise. I think we had 3 or 4 locations, and we said, oh, this could be an opportunity to perhaps get some investment, but also get our exposure out there. And we were like, well, what should we pitch? Should we pitch College Hunks? And we had a joking business, or business we had joked about, called College Foxes Packing Boxes. That would be the sister business. So that's actually what we went on Shark Tank to pitch, but we used College Hunks as an example of something that we would sort of co-market with this other new concept. The Sharks were not idiots. They smelled blood in the water, so they made an offer. Robert made an offer for College Hunks, but he wanted equity in this whole College Foxes concept, which was more just a TV idea, not really something we would ultimately pursue. But yeah, Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, he beat us up a bunch too.
Trying to pause it, David, or turn down the volume. You can play it and turn down the volume. But so who was on at that time? Kevin O'Leary.
It was Damon John, Kevin O'Leary. There's my business partner Omar. There's me, round face, no face.
You were so young, dude. This is crazy.
Again,
you were like 22 or something like that.
I think 23, 23, 24 maybe. And so, yeah, it was Damon John, Kevin O'Leary, Barbara Corcoran, Robert Herjavec. And then the first shark here is actually Kevin Harrington. He's a Tampa guy or St. Pete guy. He was on episode 1 or season 1 and 2. And then I think they replaced him with Mark Cuban.
Okay.
But yeah, so really the same sharks minus Kevin Harrington.
And then here's like the example of the shitty mover you have who's like banging your furniture around.
That's right.
So, dude, what was that like, right? I mean, you guys were so young. You had been in this business for a few years. I'm assuming, like, at that time, how many trucks did you have? You said you started out with 1. This is 5 years later.
So in Tampa, or in D.C., I should say, because we just moved to Tampa. In D.C., we probably had, let's call it 10 trucks, and we had probably 3 or 4 franchises that we had already sold. So we knew we were onto something, that the market was responding. It was something that was working. But when we went to do Shark Tank, you got to remember, because it was episode 1, these guys weren't television celebrities yet. Like, we had never seen them before in our lives. Like, if you go on the show now,
right,
Kevin O'Leary is going to be, throwing shade at you, kind of what to expect from each one. And so we went in sort of blindly. To us, these were just these, business owners for a pilot episode. But yeah, we had, a few locations, probably 10 trucks in DC, call it, 2 or 3 in Tampa. And we just
kind of
winged it. Yeah.
Damn,
it was really our first taste of mainstream media, to kind of get exposure for our business and our brand. And
did it help with that?
I think so. Probably not as much as if we'd gone on now with a larger following, but it reruns on CNBC every once in a while.
This episode,
people watch it on streaming, if they're trying to catch up on, old episodes or, original episodes of Shark Tank.
This was really a defining moment for reality TV. It became, and still is, super popular, man. I bet at the time, like you said, you're like, this might not even make it.
Yeah, it's crazy that the show's been on for 15 plus years. And I think before a show like this existed, entrepreneurship was not as glamorized as it is today. It didn't have, the social media champions of entrepreneurship and, charting your own path or charting your own destiny, or it was more viewed as something that was risky. It was viewed as something that was kind of like secondary, not something that was applauded or celebrated or taught. And I think the show did a good job. Kids would watch the show. My kids watch the show now, where they can kind of understand business dynamics in a very simplified form.
Yeah, and I think at the time, and you're a little older than me, you probably speak to this better, but like, I think entrepreneurs were thought of as almost like hustlers at the time, like in the early 2000s and even before that. And now on social media, it's like there's this grind culture, and I get up at 3:30, and that's kind of a funny example, right? But there really is this like deep entrepreneurial thing on social media, and the amount of people like Robert and like Damon and these guys and Kevin O'Leary, like they have become superstars in the business world. because of this entrepreneurial stuff. Like so many people appreciate this type of media.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of amazing to see, really.
Yeah.
In the last 15 years, it's like totally been amplified.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
I would agree. Because again, like I said before, I was brought up to follow the traditional career path. You work hard in school, you get good grades, you get into college, you get a degree, you get a job. This notion of entrepreneurship, at least for me, wasn't something that I was exposed to. I didn't know what the word meant until we started our business, and somebody's like, "Oh, you're an entrepreneur." So I think now the notion of starting a business is much more mainstream. It doesn't make it easier to do. It doesn't make it, more likelihood of success. So that's, I guess sort of the flip side is, you still got to recognize that the odds are not for you when you're starting into something for yourself, but the rewards can be very meaningful.
It's almost like the word entrepreneur has gone through its own cycle. Like it started off like hustler, or what does this mean? Then it was like very viable, and everyone started calling themselves that. And now it's almost like sort of a dirty word, like, oh, he's an entrepreneur.
Right.
He rents a Lambo and has a place at the Heron and Water Street. You know what I mean? It's like, but I think to your point, it's nothing about business has necessarily changed, right? The relationships and the systems you build and all that has been the case in this country for a hell of a lot longer than reality TV existed.
That's right. That's right. I mean, having something of value, whether it's a product or service, having a brand that stands out that people can recognize and identify with, getting good people to come in and execute on the vision of what it is you're providing or deliver on the solutions that you're, claiming to offer. All of that stuff I think is universal as far as commerce or business is concerned.
100%. And in the very beginning, you mentioned a little bit about how there was a reception from your customers about, hey, like Omar, maybe we're onto something here, right? Like you said, the people were receptive to the brand and the service and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I call it kind of a pattern interrupt. The name was funny. It was tongue in cheek. It was somewhat of a conversation starter. Even if even to this day, people ask silly questions like, "Oh, are they all really hunks? Are they all do they take their shirts off to move? Are they all really in college?" Which I think is a good thing because it's causing people to ask or inquire or talk. And so when I realized that people paid attention to the name. They thought the orange and green colors were bright and shiny. It stood out. And then, a year or two later, we read another book. It was called The Purple Cow by Seth Godin. And the concept there is if you're driving down a country road and you see a bunch of brown cows, you keep driving because you've seen it before. But if there's a purple cow, you're going to pull over. And the book was written pre-social media. So, in his book, he's like, you're going to tell people at the dinner table about it, tell your coworkers and friends and neighbors about it. Nowadays, you put it on social media. But he goes on to say, so the remarkable purple cow element of it has to be, yes, the brand, you got to stand out. But to me, that's the sizzle. You still have to have the steak that backs it up. It can't just be, a purple cow that looks cool, but you eat the steak and it tastes like the same as all the brown cows. So for us, our sizzle was the name, the colors, the story. But the steak that we had to really get, roll up our sleeves and get intentional about is the culture for our employees and franchise owners. The service that our clients receive, can we consistently provide at least even an incrementally better experience than, on average than most other movers or haulers out there? And if so, that gives us an edge to also be different and remarkable.
That purple cow concept probably goes further today than it ever did because a new business or a new service business can establish itself super quickly with branding because of the internet, because it was social media.
It's even easier today, right? I mean, ChatGPT can create your logo, can create your truck wrap, can create your website. So, in those early days, we didn't even have Fiverr or these offshore solutions. We had to find somebody that could make a logo. We had to find somebody locally that could print the graphics. And so, somebody locally that could program the website. And it was, I think it was like Omar's ex-girlfriend's cousin or something like that that did our first website. So yes, I think, time to launch is a lot faster now. Sort of levels the playing field, makes access into business a little bit easier. But that honestly raises the stakes for us because if it's lower barriers to entry, then we have to keep raising our level of expectation of what we can deliver for the clients, removing the friction for booking, giving options to book online or call, speed of lead, all those sorts of things we have to keep raising because the competition is, I think, more ubiquitous now.
And you could probably operate a lot more lean today than you could when you started 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Like you could, not that you would or could or do, but I'm almost imagining there could be like a virtual headquarter franchise office, and a business could be like just a select few people leverage technology and manage franchisees. I'm probably oversimplifying
Yeah,
it,
no,
but
I mean, look, franchising is a very people-heavy business because you're providing the support and guidance and coaching for somebody that's in business for themselves. And then, of course, it'll be a while, but before the hunk bots can lift that other end of the couch and load it into the truck. So we're still pretty people-dependent business, but with every technological evolution, whether it's AI, social media, or just Web 2.0, whatever, we've got to have an embrace and adoption of it to be able to, at minimum, stay in the game and not get sort of run over by somebody that's using it or leveraging it more effectively. It's like if you're playing the football game and all of a sudden whatever the new play, the tush push that is running everybody into the end zone, and you're the only team that doesn't adopt that play, either because you don't know how to do it or you're sort of stuck in the old ways of doing things. On average, you're going to lose because you're not taking advantage of those new tools. So for us, it's leveraging AI tools, some offshore, nearshore solutions to do things. And I don't think it necessarily reduces workforce. It just makes us more productive and or keeps us in the game with everybody else that's pulling those tools into their ecosystem.
And you said the people component of it has remained the same, if not as stronger today than ever, right? That relationship you have to have with that operator, that franchisee. How does that part of it work, right? Someone says, I live in Atlanta. I really love your business. I'd like to open up a college Hunks here. And you kind of coordinate with them and develop that strategy. How does that work?
It's, I would say, a pretty sophisticated, but also simple and streamlined process. So we have, an investment criteria. We have a kind of personality profile and culture fit profile that we evaluate to make sure the person has the financial means, but also the skill and will to execute this business model. I mean, there's 3,000 different types of franchise opportunities out there, from, retail to work from home to service to everything in between, food and beverage. And so our concept, what we tell people is, what you got to be passionate about in our business is we call it building leaders. That's one of our core values. So if you work with people that you're training them how to provide a great service in the community, interact with clients, make people's lives easier, and view that as a blessing, not a burden, then this business could be for you. If it's something where you're just, calling this new generation lazy and dismissing them, then it's more of a burden. You're not going to commit yourself or roll up your sleeves as a mentor or leader, as a business owner in this company. And so once somebody comes and expresses interest, we walk them through the process. If we approve them, they approve us. We say we don't sell franchises, we award them. So we make an invitation to have them join the system, the franchise, and then we provide them, 100-point pre-opening checklist, get them locked in with the truck vendors, the insurance providers, the marketing vendors, help them with site selection.
Wow.
And
Pretty full service.
yeah,
I
they
mean,
they come in for a week long, we call it Hunk University training, where it's, history, vision, values, help them set up a long-term vision for their business, give them, we call a roadmap, GPS to help them get to their destination, and then ongoing coaching. We operate a central call center for them. So they're not answering the phone, driving the truck. We're answering their phone for them. We operate the central software and back office. Bookkeeping we do for them a lot, we do for them as well, to help them focus on the business, not in it. So it's the goal is help create successful, profitable, fulfilled franchise owners. And if we can do that, then the brand will continue to elevate.
and you mentioned something about competition, which I think is interesting, right? Like these people that are willing to open up a franchise, they're looking at, a Burger King, a Subway, or like did these different things. Are you finding most of your franchisees are directly looking for this kind of business, or are they more open to just business in general as entrepreneurs?
It's a wide mix. There exists specialists called franchise consultants or franchise brokers that think of them as almost like real estate agents for people that are thinking about buying a franchise. And so they'll work with somebody that's maybe just, thinking, I want to transition out of a, corporate world into a franchise, or I want to own my own business. Where do I start? And these consultants will kind of take them through personality profiles, match them with somebody that could, have the right financials or the right business model. And so somebody might say, well, I want to be, absentee owner. Well, that just excludes us because most of our franchise owners really got to be there, at least owner managed on a almost daily basis. And so I think most of the people find us through referrals from the consultants where it kind of matches their personality fit and their background, professional background, or maybe they saw us on Shark Tank and it just kind of thought, oh, that's an interesting business model, or they saw one of our other PR stories, or heard about our business from somebody and wanted to be a part of it. So I think the brand standing out appeals to them. The culture, what we have developed that we stand for, aligns with their values. And then they kind of look under the hood and see some of our success stories in our system. And they say, hey, I want to be a part of that.
This episode is brought to you by the official remodeler of the TBD podcast, Kohler House Remodeling Company. Built on the belief that every homeowner deserves a premium experience, Kohler House is redefining high-end home remodeling with their commitment to integrity, craftsmanship, and quality communication. Their work speaks for itself, from condos in the towers of Channelside to 100-year-old homes in South Tampa, creating spaces that are both stunning and functional. What sets Kohler House Remodeling Company apart is their dedication to not only transforming homes into beautiful spaces, but to elevating the standard of residential general contracting. From concept to completion, every detail is handled with care, ensuring a process that's as smooth as the results are impressive. To learn more, check out our partner's website at kohlerhouse.net, KOHLERHAUS.net. This episode is sponsored by Chansey Architecture and Interior Design. Rooted in the heart of Ybor City for over 35 years, Walt Chansey and his team are trailblazers in their field. Beyond their work across the United States and the Bahamas, Chansey has shaped some of the most iconic residential and commercial spaces that serve as gateways to Cigar City, including Casa Marti and Casa Gomez. What sets Chansey Design apart is their ability to preserve the soul and character of historic buildings while seamlessly integrating modern design and functionality. They blend tradition with innovation, creating spaces that honor the past while meeting today's needs. Check out their work at www.chanseydesign.com. Well, first of all, when did you start doing the franchise?
I would say a little, I think I mentioned earlier, a little prematurely. I would think in hindsight, we should have had a second or third location that we operated ourselves before we started selling franchises. But we started the business officially in 2005. That was right after college. And then we began franchising in roughly 2008.
So within 3-4 years, you were already doing the franchise model.
Yeah.
Have you noticed any sort of trends in what franchisees are looking for, whether it's personality traits, whether it's ambitious traits or not, in the last, I guess it's been 17 years since you've been franchising?
So I think that when you're looking at a business to be a part of, in particular a franchise, I always use the 4 F's: fit, family, financial, and fun. The fit means like transferable skill set. Can you apply a skill set to whatever this business is? Can you see yourself doing this? Family is your spouse or your parents. Are they going to believe in that business model too? So they'll be in your corner cheering, not saying, I told you not to do that stupid business.
Right.
Financial, based on what you're investing versus how much you think you can earn, does the business model pencil out to be able to meet your financial goals? And then the fun factor, or you could say fulfillment factor, can you see yourself getting out of bed every morning and working in that business? And I think that's pretty constant across the board. Like, people want to have meaning in their work, know that they're making an impact, be able to make the financial return for the effort that they're putting in. Is the juice worth the squeeze?
Yeah.
At least to them. And so I think that would be the lens I would look at if evaluating any kind of franchise concept, because there's a lot of sizzle out there in franchising. But you got to also, as we said, have the steak that can meet those F's.
That if that was a pie, is it equal quadrants of those 4 things?
I think so. Think of it as like, 4 wheels on a truck, right?
I think that's so interesting because I would imagine the financial component would be the most important, but you're almost saying like the will of that person to actually even want to do this. Like, are they excited to do this? Do they think it's fun? Is there family behind it?
I can speak just as an entrepreneur. If it was strictly about the money, I probably would have given up a long time ago, because we started franchising, if you think about it, 2008, which is right around the housing crisis occurred and started. So if you were to pick a time in history that you would want to start a home service
It's like the
franchise
worst.
with people that have disposable income to spend in their houses or on their houses, 2008, 2009, 2010 probably wasn't the best window. Now, in hindsight, that was probably the best thing that happened to us because, the wind wasn't at our back. We had no choice but to just keep on pressing forward. But we weren't making any money in those 3 years. It was like dragging an anchor through the sand, just grinding, grinding, grinding. So if it was strictly about the money, like I said, I probably would have given up and gone back and gotten a job or done something differently in that little window. So I think, it's cliche to say, but you want to have the vision and purpose kind of as your North Star, so that it continues to get you out of bed in the morning. And, our vision and purpose was to make a positive impact in the communities that we were serving, see that on the, faces of our clients and team members, create a viable franchise opportunity for people to pursue fulfillment in all those, categories I just mentioned, financial fulfillment, fit for their skill set and have fun doing and have their family behind them doing it. And so I think just from personal experience, I recognize how important it is to sort of have that balance of motivating factors. Because also if you just make it about the money, there's no loyalty from the franchisees or from the team members either.
Right.
They're going to abandon ship the moment the headwinds start happening, which, in our industry, we're experiencing it even in this climate with high mortgage rates. People aren't moving. There's not as much velocity as homeowners, transitioning. So we've lock arms and figure it out and keep marching forward.
Wow. And so 20 years in business, how do you personally keep that enthusiasm and that fun factor alive? Because probably now there's only a viability question on the finance side if it's like new locations or, like you said, evaluating a new franchisee. Is it mostly about that fulfillment in the family and the community and the culture for you now?
When I first started, I probably was more money minded.
Right.
Point of scarcity. I just want to get to X so I can be able to afford Y. And I realized both with mentorship from others as well as my own experiences that was sort of that, treadmill experience or the goalpost keeps moving type experience. And I didn't want to always be doing that or having that feeling. So trying to shift some of my focus and attention to the more meaningful, consistent elements of purpose, values, culture. It's not easy, but I think it's worth focusing on to stay engaged and to stay motivated. And so as an entrepreneur, of course, I've floated in and out of motivation. I've floated in and out of focus on this business and chasing other ideas. And I think I'm actually my partner and I more recently, my business partner and I had a more meaningful conversation about like, hey, look, this business that we have as a platform still has an opportunity to become $1 billion brand. So what are we doing kind of messing around over here on these like side ventures and side quests? Like, why don't we come back here, kind of re-engage, roll up our sleeves one more time and see what's the maximum potential that we can take this business.
That's probably more difficult as you've grown, right? Like 2 decades in with the success you guys have had has brought with it, including the book and the Shark Tank and the media presence and everything you guys do in the community. That's probably brought opportunities up where you're like, damn, that sounds enticing to go get into that business or invest over here or do this. So combating that, right, with you and your partner, but also in your own life, like, man, that's probably a strong hurdle to overcome, right? Because there's some cool stuff you could do. Like, you don't have to get out of bed every day and do college hunks. You guys have done this for 2 decades. You could sell it. You could do this. You could do that. There's a million different directions you could take. How do you like stay strong on that North Star, man?
I would say it's an evolution. I mean, we've chased the shiny object business ideas. Most of them have fizzled out. A couple of them have actually done well. We've got a company called Trash Butler that's not franchised, but it works directly with multifamily apartment owners and managers and developers, providing the doorstep trash service on a 5-night-a-week basis for the residents. That business will do $40 million in top line revenue this year. So it's like we've got a few that have kind of escaped startup mode. But what I keep coming back to is like, where is the most, especially as my time has gotten stretched as I've gotten older. I've got 4 young kids under 10. I've got some house projects that we've done and renovated and moved out of. So as time has gotten thinned out, I think it forces me to become more disciplined with where I spend my energy and effort. And as I keep looking and have circled all the way back to college hunks. I'm like, it's like this blinking light saying, I'm the racehorse.
I'm still here.
I'm still here. Feed me.
Yeah.
And I'm going to, the compound effect is going to be a lot greater than you messing around over here in startup world.
I think it's interesting you just said, as you've gotten older, right? The wife, the house, the kids, like it's forced you to be more disciplined about your time. I have a 2-year-old and a 2-month-old.
Wow,
so
congratulations.
You're thank you. Yeah. I'm in it, right? But it's brought those challenges. Fatherly advice, like how have you maintained that?
Wow. Well, I will tell you, for me, the hardest was the first kid, because that was the shift of like, I'm doing things kind of on my time and on my terms, to like, okay, I have a living, breathing, being that I'm responsible for, that needs to eat, sleep, change every 3 hours. So that was like the spin cycle for me to try to shift things, to be more balanced, more focused, and more, I should say, time blocking.
Yeah.
Advice, it's cliche to say, but enjoy it, embrace it, and know that the stress it's stressful. There's shitty moments. You shouldn't feel bad about it.
And maybe that's a part of it that can never be taken away until your kids are out of the house. But then you're like, shit, it's over.
Yeah. The 3 things I say are the hardest things I've ever done. For sure, starting a business. For sure, having kids. And the third, which your listeners will probably laugh at, was getting the power lines buried over in Beach Park in my neighborhood, because I had to get all the neighbors to sign off on the easement and pay for their portion. I had to get Tico involved and these other, Spectrum Charter involved. So those are the 3 hardest things I've done. But
I bet it looks beautiful now.
It looks beautiful without those unsightly power lines.
I mean, I don't know if we even want to get into this, but did you have opposition from neighbors?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Two of the, well, we were only able to do half the street, thankfully on my half of the street, both sides, but not the entire street or block, I should say. And there was like 2 houses that I ended up having to pay for. And
was that the pinch point? Like in general, was like, hey, cool idea, but I don't want to pay for this.
Some of it was financial, but when I removed that objection, 2 of them were just like, oh no, I don't want the city to have an easement. I'm like, well, they already have an easement with the power lines and the, plumbing and, gas and everything else that's going through. So I don't know. I don't know what the objection was.
I bet it looks way better. I love, sidewalks, curbs, nice road, and no power lines. It totally transforms.
Yeah. Well, I was jealous because when I had moved over to Beach Park, I drove through Culberth Isles, and I was jealous because there's no power lines on those, streets. It just felt so serene and calm, and there was no, clutter. And so I went back to my street. I was like, man, this feels like a third world country with all these wires hanging everywhere. So
for real,
I took it upon myself. And now that I'm living back in Hyde Park on Bayshore again, there's like 3 poles, but I've already got my 3 neighbors to participthink.
It'd be nice if they could do the entire city, but I just think, if it's hard enough to do it in a particular block.
Well, I think it's the SPP Storm Protection or Storm Preparedness Protection Program, or Storm Protection Program, I think it's called. And they do have a multi-year plan to get all or most of the power lines buried, especially in like, high wind, high flood areas. So it's happening.
Right. It'll just take time.
It's going to take time. And I think in our case, because we were trying to circumvent waiting 3 years, it was even more tricky.
I mean, doing it across the city, right? Amplify what you just talked about in your neighborhood times the entire city, right? Like,
that's right.
It's going to take some time, but I think it'll be worth it. Back to the fatherhood thing.
One last thing, it just pops up.
Yeah.
People were objecting, sorry, about the green boxes, like the transformer boxes. They're like, I don't want those green boxes. I'm like, so you'd rather this giant wooden pole with that big transformer and wires hanging across your yard than having a box that you can kind of put some hedging around that nobody ever notices? But it was.
I live in Ballast Point, and my neighborhood was built, I think like 99 or 2000. So it's newer, right? Mm-hmm. So it does have the buried utilities and all that. It looks so much nicer.
Yeah.
And it's funny with this show, we talk about so many different things like transportation, power lines, whatever you name it. And something that we would sit here and imagine the whole world would agree with.
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing? Some people would even say, I don't want the green box in my yard. I'd rather have the power. It's like, what? Really?
Yeah.
Really? I don't know. I guess I'm naive to think like.
It's a lack of vision. I mean, I even did, before and after photos where I, Photoshopped.
Damn, you went in on this thing.
I had a whole
PowerPoint presentation.
I had a whole package. I had to sit with each neighbor. It was like a full-time job.
And the only reason you did it was because probably storm resiliency, but also just looks
It
nice.
was honestly, it was the latter. I wanted to walk outside and not see any power lines.
Well, congrats on getting
I'm a
it
little bit
done.
OCD when it
I know
comes to
you
stuff, but
move mountains.
I think, attention to detail, I think is a very important, in vision is a very important trait in entrepreneurship. Like details do matter. Like you walk into a restaurant, like, do you notice all the little
Mm.
elements of it? Or you walk into a renovated lobby or property or whatever the case may be. And so for me, that was sort of my just OCD / attention to detail was just, I don't know, the alarm was going off and I got fixated on it.
It's so true that that matters in business and in real estate design, like any commercial property that we've renovated or a house that I've flipped. I always have a really, really attention to detail mindset when it comes to every small little thing. Like the face plates of the outlets have to be straight. The
Yeah.
fans have to be in the center of the room. Like when you add up all these small details, although the buyer of that property or the client you're hoping to service might not be able to point out why they appreciate the product, for some reason, when you add up all those little details, it really produces a better product. But
100%.
the buyer might not know it. It's just
Yeah.
there.
It's like how you define quality. Like it's such somewhat of a subjective concept, but I think it's the accumulation of details done right or with purpose and intention, and you can certainly see it when it comes to design.
Yeah.
And to your point, like you might not notice, or somebody walking in might not notice that this trim is slightly off center, or there's a little bit of a cut line swirl in that paint, but like you as the person that's championing that project, you're going to notice, and I think it just creates a more beautiful picture overall.
100%. I've even taken it into what we do here with TBD. Like David can tell you, I've definitely brought that energy to some of the stuff we post on social media. Like our David's like moving his eyes around, but like the write-ups we do, like the size of the
Hmm.
font. I mean, all these little details, I swear they matter. Why they matter, I don't know that I could tell you, but I know that they do
Yeah.
because I've seen people appreciate it.
Absolutely, and it's a fine line because you also hear the whole thing. The enemy of good is perfect. Like
Right.
at some point you got to push it out there. You can't just be frozen by detail. Perfecting. Like eventually with the the power lines, I had to just say, okay, we're gonna do half the street, not the whole street. Like I'm not gonna wait till everybody signs off. And
Right.
so, but I do think an obsession with the detail, and I drive some of my team members crazy too, is because like it's a blessing and a curse. My wife pointed out to me, my parents pointed out also, is like I can walk into a room that is perfect, but I'm able to point out like the one thing that's imperfect, and it could drive people crazy because like the team could have done a really good job on something, and for whatever reason, like my head first goes to what wasn't right.
Mm-hmm.
So I have had to retrain myself a little bit there because that can be demoralizing to a team
A
as
hundred
well if
percent.
you're always harping on what's wrong with the situation.
100%. You have to have those people on your team, or even your spouse or people in your family that can kind of check you from time to
That's
time
right.
and recognize that.
And point out how that's being received or how you're showing up in the in how others might be perceiving you.
So you've learned a lot in the last 20 years. You think you're going to write another one of these?
No, I don't think I'm going to write another book. I think that one's sufficient. We wrote that. I would say it's still 90% relevant and universal, the stuff that's in there. 10% I would change. Most of what I would change, and it is, when we wrote it, we were single bachelors in our 20s. I think we wrote it with a little bit of an edge, thinking we were going to be like the next Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week.
Yeah.
It didn't quite pan out that way, but I would have probably toned down the edge a little bit. And I don't think we need to write another book. I think doing the podcast, sharing our story, and some other things is good enough to get the value out there to folks.
100%. And I'm finding that even absorbing, like I listen to podcasts and I watch YouTube videos, and sometimes those are more powerful. Like hearing someone who's gone before you in business and done something that you want to do or you'd love to imagine yourself doing, that's just as inspiring, if not more than a book.
Yeah. Well, success leaves clues, and however you consume that, whether it's auditory or video or at a conference. I sometimes drive my team a little bit crazy because I'll go away to a conference and come back with like a binder of to-dos and be like, hey, we got to be doing all these things. So I've had to check myself in that regard too. Although when I look back at some of my notes from like the early days of business, we're doing a lot of things now that 10, 15 years ago, I was like, we got to be doing. It might have taken 5, 10 years to get them all in motion. But again, as Tony Robbins says, you model the masters, success leaves clues, and then figure out your own ways to innovate and ideate on top of that.
And think about what you have accomplished, right?
Yeah.
And how far you have came. Like I remember I was up David's butt about some stuff a few months ago, and David was like, dude, but think about where we're at now,
Yeah.
right? Like think about how dialed in we are on certain things. And I was like,
Yeah.
damn, you're right.
There's
All right.
there's a book. I'm throwing out all these books that have influenced me, but a book I read recently called Gap versus the Gain. And the idea is that most of us live in the gap, meaning what we don't have, that place of scarcity or that sort of ideal that's just out of reach. And it's always going to be out of reach because no matter where you land, there's something else that you're trying to achieve. But when you live in the gain, meaning look at where we started to look at where we are, it sort of immediately shifts you into a gratitude mindset. And when you operate from that perspective to say everything that we're looking to achieve beyond this is going to be amazing, icing is going to be awesome to achieve, but I'm not doing it from a place of like just hunger and starvation and I have to get that because I'm empty. And so that shift I think makes a big difference as well.
Those emotions of scarcity are sort of double-edged, right? Because on one side, you said earlier in the conversation, you're actually glad you had that. Like you're glad it was like kind of a crappy market time to do what you did because it gave you something to push through.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, if you operate in that mindset, it's not helpful to moving forward and really getting what you want.
That's right. Because you're always then going to feel like, because even coming out of that, if I still felt that way, then I'm always going to feel that way.
Right.
And I've never,
and we all want to be happy.
we all
Like,
want to be happy.
damn,
We want
you
to
know?
at least have some semblance of appreciation for what we've put in and what we've achieved. So I think that's kind of it's always a balance, but I think that's sort of the notion is, hey, look at where we started, look at where we are. And then to me, what I'm trying to achieve is what I call potential maximization. So how can I maximize my potential personally as a leader, father, husband, community member? And then how can I maximize the potential of our business and the people in that business as well? And I think if you're constantly thinking of ways to improve yourself and improve the business, then there's progress and fulfillment in that progress.
100%, man. So let's talk about the community, right? We were spoken before we went live. You were at a dinner and some community leaders were around the table talking about some ideas for the city and for the region, stuff like that. And we also talked about some of the stuff you guys have done, right? I mean, the hurricane stuff alone is incredible. And did I see you had a foundation or a...
We do. We have a 2-for-1 giving partnership with U.S. Hunger. So we donate 2 meals for every completed job. We actually donated over 5 million meals since we started that program.
Wow.
And then we also, we have kind of our internal foundation for team member assistance, financial assistance. We also provide free moves for survivors of domestic violence. So that's something that we started during the COVID time and have done over 100 of those as well. So, so yeah.
That's awesome. And so this community, Tampa, the city, I think you sound like an optimistic person, and I am too. And I think this city has a long road ahead of it to get to where we need to be. Burying the power lines is a part of it. But what an opportunity we have, right? We've got so much going for us. How do you feel about like what direction we should go in just in terms of the city? I think the infrastructure is a great point. We want nice roads to drive on. We want safe streets, like all that stuff, but expand more on that. It sounds like you're digging deeper into the community role.
Yeah.
You play.
So I was fortunate enough to be invited to what they called a Jeffersonian dinner last night in South Tampa. Mayor Castor was there, bunch of business executives from the Tampa community, a lot of real estate developers, and there were some prompt questions. It was in a roundtable format. They actually recorded our conversation and uploaded the recordings to ChatGPT or the transcript for like summation, which I thought was pretty neat.
Interesting.
And it was basically some of the questions were, how do we make Tampa the most talent-rich community in the next 10 years? How do we make Tampa leverage AI and things like transportation or permitting or just community engagement? And some of the conversations that came out of it, I thought were very intriguing. One of the things that I thought was interesting was sort of this duality of, what is Tampa's brand and what is the vision for Tampa? Like, do we have that clearly defined? Because, we've been fortunate enough to win some sports championships, Tom Brady came here and brought the spotlight on us from, mainstream athletics and sports. I mean, Gasparilla is kind of known, but not widely known. And so you talk to people and you're like, Tampa, like some people still look at it as like, the redheaded stepchild of Miami.
Yeah.
Some people view it as like, New York's back office. Some people view it as, just a sleepy beach retirement, town. But like, does Tampa need to sort of go on the offensive of defining its brand beyond the beaches, beyond, as we talked about earlier, it's no longer necessarily a great, value from a cost saving standpoint for living. So how do we define it as a place where, people from each of the demographic sets, age, can live, work, play, raise a family? And so I think those are viable questions. And I think Tampa has so many intangible benefits, like the same thing that attracted me to Tampa 15 years ago, attracted people to Tampa 5 years ago during COVID, continues to attract people, to this day. It's the weather, it's the business community, it's the, even just the airport convenience in and out
True.
as a home base. And so, there were some things brought up about, like, the developers, of course, talked about challenges of permitting as an example, or delays of permitting. And so actually Mayor Castor shared with us, they're actually implementing artificial intelligence to expedite the permitting process. They'll still have some human engagement to make sure it's, working. But she also mentioned that they've processed 27,000 permits in the past year, which is a pretty massive number if you think about it from a manual standpoint. So, obviously I think it'd be beneficial to have Brightline coming here to be able to connect to Orlando and South Florida. Who knows if we'll start getting the Waymos or the air taxis, that they've talked about. But I think all of those things are things that we need to be kind of embracing as a community if we want to continue to move Tampa
100%.
forward.
Yeah, I think that I love the idea of AI in the building department to try to navigate the permit process. I mean, that number, 23,000 permits just this year, is unbelievable.
That's right.
And for a city to take that on, for any municipality to take that on, what a challenge.
Yeah.
So you got to give grace to that department and those
Absolutely.
people for what they do, right?
And especially coming out of a hurricane where everybody's, because, there was actually somebody there last night she's still waiting for her permit over a year to demo her house that was damaged in the hurricane. And so, like, that sort of anecdotal story is just, you got to feel for, it'd actually be interesting. I don't know who is championing the AI effort with that, but it might be interesting to have on your show to talk
100%.
through.
Yeah, I would love to ask them about, artificial intelligence and computer programs sort of operate. They seem to operate in this binary pattern. And with real estate development, there's so many different nuances and overlays and different codes. And I think the challenge right now is people at the city saying no to something when, if they dug a little deeper, the answer was actually yes. And my fear is that AI would look at our black and white code and be like, no, the answer is no, you can't do that. Well, in reality, let's take into context, right? Let's take in what's the overall goal of this project. Can we create an exception for this project because it's a benefit to the public? Like, I don't know that AI can do that part of it. So my fear is that if you implement AI, it could be worse in some senses if it doesn't have the capability to take into account certain context and be dynamic.
Or it hallucinates and just completely bungles something.
But the stuff about, like, hey, I've been waiting on a demo permit since the hurricane, to me, it's inexcusable. I mean, I hear that and I'm like, ooh, that's not good.
Yeah.
But again, 23,000 permits, they're dealing with a whole lot. So I guess it's always that balance between those two things.
That's right.
I think you're totally right, though. Like, some of those efficiencies that the private sector wants to see will kind of solve everything. I think, like you said, man, like Tom Brady was here, and we definitely are the it city, and we're on the radar. Private sector is just chomping at the bit to do some of these large real estate development projects we talk about on the show all the time. Everything that's happening, I don't have to tell you what's happening, right? It's
that's
like
right.
We can see it, we can feel it. The private sector is ready to start writing checks and do these big things, but when you have government that is not at the efficiency level it should be, that's just too bad, because the private sector is ready to roll. I think, 10, 20 years ago, Tampa had the challenge of, like, come here, build here, do this,
Invest.
do that.
And now you've got things like Water Street.
Right. We don't have that problem anymore. Now we just have the problem of sharpening the sword and tying the loose ends and creating that efficiency, which I think is actually I'd rather have that problem than, well, no one knows about us at all, and
Right.
we can't even get a developer to come in and do anything here.
Yeah. And there was talk, about like, there was some debate about, does Tampa need a, you know, mega cap company, whether it's a, Google or a whatever,
Yeah.
Tesla or whatever, to sort of stake a flag here? Or are we okay with this sort of very diversified industry, cross section of healthcare, tech, real estate, all these financial, like there's no one core industry here. Actually, one of the attendees last night was from, she's on the board of Fanatics. She's moving back to Tampa from New York. And she pointed out, like, Fanatics is this mainstream brand. They do the, Fanatics Fest up in New York.
Yeah.
The guy, Mike Rubin. And she's like, why Fanatics really hasn't done any promotion here in Tampa. They've got this big building right by the airport. So she's like, I'm going to, get something going there. We get some events and activity and more groundswell with some of the, big brands that are already here that maybe haven't done as much to promote the community. Because one of the takeaways I had last night is like, okay, there's a ton of successful business people here, people that are passionate about this community. If we just, with our vendors that we're talking to, that we're doing business with, like encourage them to set up shop in Tampa or set up a satellite in Tampa, or, recruiting wise, start not just recruiting people remotely, but encourage people to move here and kind of become ingrained in the community. I think, we talked about having more interconnectedness with, St. Pete, Clearwater, and Tampa. So there's not these sort of three disparate, separately operating ecosystems there on their own as well.
Yeah, I think as a region, we're just so attractive, right? When you combine everything that the Tampa Bay region has, boy, we have it all. So it's almost no wonder why people want to move here and want to do business here and want to move their headquarters here. It's just, yeah, it's a matter of like messaging and continuing to tell the stories of the history. I've tried to do that on this show. I'll have on like a historian or whatever, because the last thing I want to see is for us to become like Miami or Orlando, where you're just kind of another Florida city. You don't necessarily have that identity. You're like palm trees, beaches, and Mickey Mouse, and that's sort of it. I don't think Tampa's that at all. I think we have a story and a history and a culture that if we express, I think people moving here will really enjoy. So you got to keep telling those stories too.
Yeah. And we've got some pretty amazing crown jewels.
Oh yeah.
Whether it's Ybor or Bayshore or the beaches or the airport, like there's a lot of, sort of stuff you can't replicate or develop. And just it's, I think what Daryl Shaw's doing in Ybor is going to be amazing. And what obviously Vinnick did in Water Street, like those are things that those guys really pioneered to help elevate Tampa to the next level while leveraging some resources that we already had at our fingertips.
So can we talk about Bayshore Boulevard for a second? You said you live off Bayshore on air, right?
That's right.
I think you said that, so I can say that without like, but a lot of, look, I mean, you've been here for over 2 decades. And even when I was younger, up to 30 years ago, I remember of horror stories on Bayshore happening with traffic fatalities and stuff like that. Bayshore to me still has a long way to go. Like, I think there's been a little bit of conversation how you could stop the northbound lane and turn that into a trail, blah, blah, blah. But man, the reality is people use that to commute every day, pick up their kids from school. I use it to get to work every day, right? And so I think the solution there is you can get that sidewalk expanded with some sort of a bike lane. And then you don't have like moms and babies and rollerbladers and bicyclists and runners all competing for that little sidewalk.
Oh
right
man,
there.
your music to my ears. Everything you just said. I mean, I lived in Bayshore, on Bayshore. Then I moved to Beach Park, and then we moved back to the Bayshore Hyde Park area. I actually championed an effort 10 years ago to make Bayshore safe with the crosswalks, and so now they added a spattering of crosswalks every few intersections. But,
I think they should be raised.
I think they should be raised.
Bit,
I've got vision of Rome and Bayshore being a roundabout, maybe even a pier out into the water. Like just make it more pedestrian.
Okay, so you're like,
I've got a lofty vision. We can talk further about that.
Okay, I was curious because you live there, right? And I'm imagining there would be people that live there that don't necessarily want to see that, but you're not in that camp at all.
No.
You're actually like, hey man, this thing has a long way to go.
Shut it down once a month on a Sunday, make it a picnic, like Rio on the main, drag of Ipanema. I mean, like you could make it like such a more than just a 4-lane thoroughfare.
To your point earlier, we are lucky to have these like crown jewel assets. You can make them better and amplify them.
That's right.
Think about, you probably travel a ton because of your business. What major city has that drive like we do? Going up Bayshore Boulevard, you see the city in the background, that long sidewalk on the bay. So unique and just gorgeous to our area. And I think it does have a long way to go, man.
Yeah.
I think you could do a couple things that would totally make it even better.
Yeah. I've got some friends that we've created some mini renderings, so we'll have to talk further on what we could do there.
You got to send me those, man. I got to take a peek at those.
That
things.
might have to be my new obsessive passion project that you just ignited.
So we talked about you moving to Tampa, but I don't think we talked about why. Like, how did you make it down here? Why Tampa?
So when we started franchising our business, we knew we wanted an inbound call center that would book the appointments for all of our franchisees. And this was before remote work was a thing. DC was a high cost of living, cost of office space, cost of labor. I wouldn't call it the most supportive business community, at least not back then, probably still not now. And so we did a lot of research, and Tampa was one of a handful of cities that popped up in our research. I liked the idea of living in Florida. I had never been to Tampa. I came and visited, and I would say the way I describe Tampa is small town comforts, big city amenities, even more so today. And, at the time, cost of living, supportive business community, welcoming, to outsiders moving in. Anytime I was like, oh, I just moved here, people would be like really kind of intrigued. Oh, where from? What are you doing? Oh, let me connect you with this person that might be able to, help you with that. And so I think those elements were very appealing and attractive. Obviously, the weather, the airport, the beaches, all those sorts of things in combination. And, then shortly after moving here, met my now wife. And, I think it's just an incredible home base. So I think all of those elements still exist. Now you get more of the amenities, more investment from, development and folks that are passionate about making it a tech forward city that's, fun, or figuring out ways to improve icons like Ybor or Bayshore. So that was kind of the main reason. It was sort of business, lifestyle.
Did you, I'm sure you looked at multiple different markets, right? Where else did you guys look?
We did. I'll be honest. I think I Googled like cities where you can open a call center, and it was like Tampa, Oklahoma City, Arizona, Minneapolis, and somewhere in Texas. And
wonder why it mentioned Tampa.
Tampa had a lot of call centers.
Sykes,
Maybe it still does. Sykes had their call center here. Actually, Pods, the portable storage container franchise, has their headquarters right across the bridge in Pinellas. And when I saw that, they had just had a private equity transaction. That's now that I remember it. And they're dealing with people moving and storage. Theirs is a little bit more do-it-yourself. Ours business is a little bit more full service. So I figured, I think I even called their call center and was like asking the agent. I was like, "Hey, do you like living down there?" I was like, "How's it working in the call center?" And we had a small office center or office suite at the corner of West Shore and Gandy, probably about the size of this room when we first moved down here, and worked there for 5 years, and then bought a building in Ybor, worked there, started growing out of that, and then we bought a building over on Tampa Bay Boulevard by Raymond James Stadium in Drew Park, right on the backside of the airport, where Air Cargo Road meets Tampa Bay Boulevard, and that's been our headquarters for really the past 8 years.
That's amazing, man. And along the way, did you ever think about moving or relocating?
No, I would say never.
Really? Never?
I think, Tampa's just a great home base. It really is. I love going and visiting other cities. I think there's a level of pride that people have, a little bit almost a chip on the shoulder that people have living here, because there's still folks that don't live here or haven't been here or haven't experienced Tampa that have a little bit of a nose up perspective to this city, which I think you always want people to doubt you or question if you can, what you have, and it's good to prove people wrong.
Well, we were talking earlier just about sort of the messaging and relaying that message, our identity, right, driving forward. But I think you just described it. It's like that Southern hospitality mixed with a big city amenities, mixed with the beautiful things that we have around town. And I think that's it, and we had on the other day, I guess it'll be last week's episode when this airs, Visit St. Pete Clearwater. And the new guy's taken over, and his kind of philosophy is like, it's not the palm trees and the beaches, it's like the arts and the culture and the small businesses, the restaurants, right? he deals in Pinellas County, so it's like Central Avenue, right? And everything that they got going on. And I was thinking about as a region, that's it, man.
Yeah.
Like the message is not for the tourist that wants to come to the beach. Like I think the message is for the ambitious person that lives out west, that's looking for a new market,
Yeah.
that still believes in the American dream in themselves. Like this is a place you can make it. Like I think I love that message for our community.
Yeah, that was brought up last night too. They were like, "Hey, we can't, keep beating this drum of, sunshine and beaches as the primary lead-in, because you're right. It's yes, tourists is a part of the industry, but there's so much more to offer. And how do we communicate that effectively?"
100%. And it really shows in the kids that graduate, like right here at University of Tampa. It wasn't that long ago when those kids would just move back up to the Northeast, right?
Yep.
And now a lot of them want to stay. Like I think they recognize that, damn, like I don't want to go back to New York. It's cold. Who am I up in New York? But in Tampa, I can be somebody and I can make it here.
That's right.
Well, listen, man, this was awesome. I appreciate you coming on the show today. If people want to reach out to you, how can they do so?
NickFriedman.com.
Are you on like Instagram stuff like that?
Of course. Yeah. Nick Friedman. And then the number 1 is my Instagram handle. So Nick Friedman 1. I'm on LinkedIn. You can go to nickfriedman.com also, where it has, I think, my social media contact. Obviously the College Hunks site has all of our College Hunks contact information as well, if you want to move or junk haul or any of those sorts of tedious tasks. But yeah, man, thanks for what you're doing, shining a spotlight. I was humbled to be invited, just because I know a lot of what you talk about is real estate focused and development focused. So to be able to share sort of a local entrepreneurial success story, to be able to have built a national company in a based in a community like Tampa, where I think it's truly a very supportive community. Like nobody's stepping on each other. They're trying to make connections and build each other up, and all tides rise with the boats.
100%, man. My pleasure having you on. And I love your enthusiasm for our area and your positivity for the business community here in town. So thank you for being here today. Effortless entrepreneur, work smart, play hard, make millions. Don't forget to pick that up too, right? Amazon.
Still on Amazon.
Did you do an audio version?
I did not do an audio version.
Oh, damn. That maybe you can do that without writing a whole new book.
Well, yeah,
right?
Nowadays, right? You could probably, honestly, with audio, you could probably record my voice and have AI read it.
AI do the whole thing. That'd be funny. You could get like, I don't know, you could get Damon John to read it through AI or
That's
whatever
right.
you need to do.
There you go.
All right. Thanks
Samuel L.
again, man.
Jackson.
Thanks everybody. Bye-bye.